Yeah, man, it's been a minute since I dropped some content, so I'm out for another walk. And before I get started, I just want to give a big shout out to my people across the water over in India, my brothers and sisters on my team. Thank you for sending me the photo. I really appreciate it. It's amazing to be able to see you guys together and stuff. And hopefully one day, I'll be able to join you guys. So you're probably wondering, it's been a long time since I made a video, and there's a reason for that. I had to take a step back and really think about what I was doing. Not only that, the landscape for making content has changed significantly. The software required for what I want to do, I had to do research on that to kind of understand what products are out there, what their capabilities are, and how do I want to create content? How do I want to edit content? That was the first part. The second part is the equipment, and picking the right type of equipment that will support it, making it easy for me to make content. And so even though I have hardware right now, and it's actually pretty good hardware, I found that I've had a lot of difficulties in editing content, just getting it off of my phone and getting it onto a computer and stuff. So, thinking about that and what type of investments that I need to make in order to get the right equipment so that I can deliver very good content. So part of that I've done, I bought, a really good gimbal. I just upgraded my phone, so I have the iPhone 15 Pro Max. So hopefully the content is looking really good. Hope you guys are enjoying the picture quality. But that's just part of the journey, right? Moving on from the technology piece, comes down to the content itself. And there's a lot of channels out there, people making content, talking about the same stuff in different flavors. And it's really thinking about, what is it that I really want to convey to the world? And what do I find value in giving, right? So I had to spend a lot of time just kind of looking at what's going on. A lot of stuff has to do with timing. Timing is a very important thing to consider, because sometimes you deliver content and your timing is off, and it gets misperceived by the public, right? And that's okay. But yeah, timing is another element that I was definitely thinking about, and how to deliver content. The other part is the bandwidth, right? I do have a professional career that I do very well in and enjoy doing. I have a great team who I just gave a shout out at the beginning. So these are things that I also have to take in consideration, is my time, and do I have enough time? I also have a family too that I got to attend to. I'm the head of my household. So, I got to make sure the family's good and doing those things. And so, I had to think about all these things when it comes to developing content to put up on YouTube. So, now that I've had some considerable time to look at these things, research these things, think about these things, I think I'm now ready to move forward and start creating more content. I still need to kind of work out a schedule. There's, areas, places I want to go to do content. It was funny because I was working on a video where, I went to an exotic car show that had a lot of beautiful cars and stuff, and I made a lot of content. And when I went to edit it, I realized that I didn't record it right. So it was like a wasted trip. But I do plan on doing that again, because I'm a big car enthusiast. I love cars. Also, I'm into, timepieces and stuff like that too. But I'm also into the market. So, that's going to help to shape how I deliver content and the things that I talk about. So now that we kind of got the house keeping over, what's the topic of discussion today? I really had to think long and hard about this one, because there's a lot going on in the world right now. And so there's so many different things I could talk about. I could talk about what's going on in the commercial real estate sector, but I think we all kind of know what's going on there. We know that there's major conflicts going on in my thoughts and prayers go out to all the victims on all sides of this crazy conflict going on in the Middle East. And I am sincerely hoping that we can come together as a people and come up with some type of solution, to stop all the killing. But I highly doubt it. And I hate to be pessimistic, but, looking at what's going on, I highly doubt it. But today, I want to focus on something different. Something that, I follow a lot, I'm very passionate about, and that's Tesla. And so I've been a Tesla investor for many, many years. I have an enormous amount of stock in the company and continue to buy. And, it's a very interesting company because of all the things that it's doing. Of course, looking at Elon Musk, he's not the most liked person among all circles, but I do believe he's the Albert Einstein of our time. And the things that the company is doing, the people that work at Tesla, the type of talent that they get, they get 3 million resumes a year applying for jobs. It's harder to get a job at Tesla than it is to get into Harvard. So just think about that for a minute. The type of talent that they're getting, and then the breakthroughs that they're making, because I follow everything from the Tesla robot down to FSD, to their manufacturing processes, and how, just recently with the Highland, they're introducing Pokeyoki, which I believe is setting up the robot to do manufacturing in the factory. There's all these things going on. But what's interesting is what happens with the stock. And so every once in a while, you get these crazy buy opportunities, right? And, I like the Rothschild philosophy of investing. The best time to buy stocks is when there's blood in the streets. So I make it a point when stock prices crash, I go in there and gobble up as much as I can. And when stocks are off to the races, I just kind of sit back and wait until the next opportunity presents itself. So the last time the stock, had a significant sell off was during the Twitter phase, where Elon had to liquidate shares in order to make sure that Twitter, which is now known as X, is funded for the next couple of years, right? And so that came to be a huge buy opportunity, because it wasn't that the performance of the company was bad. There was a different situation going on, which caused a lot of selling that made the price drop. And I picked up a ton of shares at around $100, $106. All right. Fast forward to today, there's a lot of propaganda out there. And so you have to understand that, the way technology is structured today in these markets with quants and, all these algorithms doing trading, a lot of stuff gets picked up on the internet, which triggers algorithms to do trading in a stock. And the biggest thing that people are hearing right now is how the EV market is slowing down and people are not buying EVs in the frenzy that they were before. And so you really need to dive into that, understand what's going on, because, the talk of this slowdown in the media is what's triggering a lot of selling by these algorithms. There may be some retail investors selling too, but, when the stock price fall, I don't sell. I got diamond hands. So, I just wait until I think, the selling has exhausted itself, and then I go in and buy shares. But let's talk about this, man. Do you really, really think that EVs are slowing down? I don't think so, man. And I'm going to explain why. I've driven a Tesla for over a couple of years now, and I still haven't had maintenance done on the car. Drive it, enjoy it. A Tesla moves in ways that a gas-powered car can't move. The software in a Tesla is insane. The quality of the software is insane. There's nothing else like it. There's nothing else like it on the market. There's no other manufacturer out there that has software that matches the quality of Tesla software, and they update it constantly, and they add new features for free. They make things work better, and the vehicle is better today than when I first bought it. Now, it's not too many vehicles that have that capability, not that I can name, that get better over time. I suspect in the future that may happen. But the thing is that Tesla is so efficient that they're able to really bring the price down of their vehicles, because that was the mission all along. The market tries to say, oh, they have a demand issue. That's the reason why they're dropping prices. That's not necessarily true. It's always been the mission for them to create an affordable EV. And so as they get better in their manufacturing and simplify their manufacturing processes, it becomes less and less expensive. And then you have to remember that we're coming out of a period of supply chain shortages to where things are coming back into stock. And so even the price of manufacturing a battery has fallen significantly. So, when I look at all these savings that are happening and I look at the price drop in the cost of the cars, Tesla said that that's what they were going to do. So they're actually delivering on that promise. I don't see anything wrong with that. Now, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people out there butthurt over the fact that they paid X amount of dollars to get the vehicle, and all of a sudden the prices are dropping. First of all, if you're buying a car as an investment, you need to get your head checked, because a car or a vehicle is one of the most highly depreciating assets you could ever buy. So the minute you drive it off the lot, you're losing like thousands of dollars, right? So, you have to anticipate that. When I bought my Model Y Performance, I paid a hefty penny for that vehicle. Do I regret buying it? No. And when the price dropped, was I upset? No. Because I'm an investor in a company, I understand what they're doing. I read the company mission. And so I clearly understand exactly what it is that they're trying to do, right? So now we're getting back to this demand thing and how they're telling us that, the demand for EVs is dying off. And, you got Toyota tap dancing and shit. And, they're trying to act as if, it's over and people realize EVs aren't the way to go. You have to understand that, the public is always being manipulated constantly. Constantly. It doesn't matter what it is, man. We are in the age of influence. And so you have to understand and take with a grain of salt what you hear in the news, what you hear in media, what you hear in reporting, because there's always a narrative behind it. And let me explain that when it comes to Tesla. So we talked about how Tesla is very efficient, right? And what they're doing is they're reducing the steps and the parts needed in order to manufacture a vehicle. Now, when you look at an ICE car, a gas-powered car, there is a massive, massive, massive supply chain behind a vehicle. The auto manufacturers don't actually make anything. All they do is assemble stuff. They get parts from everywhere else. They might make their engines, but even the parts from the engines are probably coming from somewhere else, right? Somebody's making the valves, somebody's making the heads, somebody's making the rods, somebody's manufacturing the block. The spark plugs come from somewhere else. All the hoses, the seats are made by somebody else. Now, the other thing that is a huge problem, which I think is handicapping the legacy auto manufacturers, is that they outsource the software. So all the different modules to control all the individual pieces of the car, the software is independent of each other. Tesla's is just one software, that controls everything, right? And they're getting very efficient at implementing it, right? It gets simpler and simpler. Even the control modules are being oversimplified to make it cheaper, less expensive to make, right? But getting back to what I was originally talking about, you have to think about how there's this huge supply chain behind all of these different parts and stuff that are required to build a vehicle. Okay, so that's a lot of jobs, that's a lot of money, right? Then you have the advertisers, they're trying to make a buck on advertising a vehicle. Tesla doesn't do any advertising. You have a union that's behind these automakers, right? Tesla doesn't have a union, right? So when you look at Tesla in comparison to the legacy environment, they are diametrically opposed to it, as they should be, because they're disrupting the market, right? So because there's so much at stake, if the Tesla model takes hold, what's going to end up happening is that a lot of jobs are going to go away because of the simplification. And then if you take the Tesla robot, which is coming, the manufacturing process is going to get even more simplified, right? So there's a vested interest in pushing people away from EVs, right? They don't necessarily want you to buy them. Even from a maintenance perspective, think about it. I've had a Tesla for 2 years. I haven't taken it in for maintenance yet. Now, if I had a gas powered car, I have to go get oil changes, transmission service, brake check service, brake fluid, radiator fluid, all these things, that the 20-something point inspection. There's all these things that have to happen with an ICE powered car that costs a lot of money to do. You don't really have any of that when you buy an EV that's built the right way, right? Now, the problem is that the legacy environment doesn't have the same manufacturing capability that Tesla does, to where they can efficiently make a product. These legacy automakers lose thousands and thousands of dollars. Even the new ones are losing thousands of dollars on each EV that they make. I think Lucid at some point now is losing like $500,000 for every Lucid Air that they sell, because they don't sell very many. And that goes to the Cybertruck, where Elon Musk is talking about how it's not going to be profitable until they can sell enough of them to offset the cost of actually building the vehicle. So what you're hearing is that because of these strikes and the increased costs, the legacy auto manufacturers have to take a step back and reassess what they're doing. It's been long predicted that the legacy automakers will eventually go out of business because it's just too expensive for them to make the conversion, right? And this is kind of like the first step in seeing that happen. If you look online, there's videos on YouTube talking about vehicles and the cost, and like how the pickup trucks and stuff are like $100,000. That's a lot of money for a pickup truck, and most people don't have that kind of money, to be paying $1,300, $1,400, $1,500 for a pickup truck, right? And then you have, the subprime issues. There's a myriad of issues, right, because of what's going on with the economy and high interest rates, right? And what happens is, at a certain point, people just say no. And I think that point is coming very, very soon, right, where people are going to be forced to say no, right? And what do I mean by that? Okay, let's look at Halloween, for example, and what just happened at Halloween. If you looked around in your neighborhood, you notice it wasn't too many people passing out candy for Halloween. A lot of houses were dark, right? Well, if you went to Costco to try and buy candy, a box of candy was like $40, $50. Some box of Snickers and Milky Ways, $30, $40, right? So are you going to spend $120 on candy just to give away? Given what's going on in the economy right now, based on what we're seeing, the answer is no. And so what happens is, we're going to get to this point where people just say no. They're not going to pay anymore. And that's when the economy is going to shift. The economy will only shift when people say no, right? Same thing with housing, right? Housing prices go up and up and up. There's a supply shortage, right? There's not enough inventory on the market, and so it's helping to keep prices inflated right now. But at some point, people will say no. They just won't pay. They will go and rent. And even though the rent is high, where a 1-bedroom in my area is like $3,500 a month, a 2-bedroom in my area is about $4,500 a month. There's houses in my neighborhood that are for rent for like $12,000 a month. Who's gonna pay that stuff, right? So at some point, people are going to say no, and I think 2024 is going to be the year of saying no. Now, when it comes back to EV sales, will EV sales look like they're falling off a bit? Yes, they will. But if you look at Tesla, they will sell every vehicle, or practically every vehicle that they make, right? Because the other legacy automakers are falling back. They're actually building products that people really don't want. It's taken 80-something days to sell a Mercedes EQS because it's very, very expensive, and it doesn't sit in the right place in the pecking order based on the cost of the vehicle, right? And so it doesn't make sense to go pay 6 figures for a vehicle only to get outrun and outgunned by a vehicle that costs significantly less. And not only that, the manufacturers are losing so much money building these vehicles, they really don't have an interest. They don't want to make them. They're forced to make them because they have to compete, right? And then come January, the tax credit is going to be put at point of sale. And so you're going to see the price of Tesla vehicles drop significantly, right? So going back to the stock price, you have a new Model 3 Highlander, which is going to be easier to make, right? It's going to be less expensive because of the point of sale tax credit. It's a much better vehicle. If you go and look at the reviews, it's a way better vehicle than a previous vehicle. The Model 3 and the Model Y are practically the #1 selling vehicle right now. They can't build enough of them. The Model Y is about to get refreshed. There's a new Model 3 Performance. There's rumor that it's going to be called the Ludicrous, which is going to be faster than the current model, right? And I suspect that the Model Y Performance is going to get the same treatment, and so it'll be, a slightly faster vehicle. But the price points will probably be very close to the same, right? And so now that Tesla has taken the time out to update their manufacturing lines and to implement their upgrades, they're ready to start flying on all cylinders and produce a lot of vehicles. And that's where the surprise is going to come in, is that they're really not expecting Tesla to sell a lot of vehicles, but in the near future, I suspect they're going to be able to sell anything they can build. Now, the wild card in all of this is gas prices. As you know, we're in an inflationary environment. Now, the inflation, they want you to think that it's demand driven. To a tiny extent, that might be true, right? But that's not really the truth. You see, there's a battle between the East and the West, right? And so, like I talked about in previous videos, the East has all the commodities. And right now, the West is in conflict with the East. So let's talk about that real quick and how this all comes together, right? So, because the Federal Reserve is raising interest rates, these other countries that have to do their transactions in dollars have to buy dollars, and they have dollar reserves, and those dollar reserves are in US Treasuries. So if you go do a little searching online, you'll see that a lot of foreign countries are selling their treasury bonds because they need to raise cash in order to fund their dollar payments that they need to make, right? And so that's one element of it, and that it impacts the demand of the U.S. Treasury market. They don't talk about it much, but I'm pretty sure it's a significant impact. And, even China has sold off billions and billions of dollars worth of U.S. Treasury bonds. Now, the other side of that is the insane borrowing from the government. I mean, I'm seeing levels of borrowing that I've never seen before. And the borrowing that's happening is at much higher rates, right? And so this cycle kind of feeds on itself, right? You have foreign countries that are selling bonds at a loss because they got to raise cash. The U.S. government is effectively broke because they have to issue bonds to pay for everything. That tells you that they're broke, right? So in order to pay back the original debt that was at a much lower rate, they have to borrow at a much higher rate to pay it back, right? So the interest expense is exploding. And what happens is this feeds into the need to have to constantly issue bonds. They have to sell hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars worth of bonds, and somebody has to buy them, right? Now, in order to get people to buy them, they're not going to buy them for free. You got to give them something. So, that's why you see rates as high as they are, okay? They're trying to tell you, oh, well, we're trying to tamper inflation. Well, the inflation is coming from the fact that the world understands that the United States is broke and that it fuels its hegemony through the treasury market. Now, this is about to get real deep. And so I want you guys to really, really think deeply about what I'm about to tell you, because I've been thinking about this for a long time and it's really coming together for me. And I talk about this with my friends and stuff. And, it's kind of interesting, our views and stuff, but I think we're all kind of like in alignment, right? Now, it's safe to say that there is no country on the planet that can necessarily defeat the United States in military combat, right? We have the most advanced military hardware on Earth, except for hypersonic missiles. We've been a country of war for a long time. We have over 800 bases around the world, and so the thing is that if you try to take the United States head on in a military conflict, 9 times out of 10, you're going to lose, or maybe close to 10 times out of 10, unless you're a nuclear power. It's mutually assured destruction. But in general, you'll lose because it's not so much about the military hardware, it's about the strategy behind how the United States fights its conflict, right? By having strategic partners and the strategy of interoperability when it comes to military hardware. So I know I'm saying a lot here, and you might need to play this stuff back, but I want you to really think about what I'm saying, right? Now I'm going to take it back to ancient times. Think about what happened to Rome. Rome was a great country that tried to rule the world for a certain amount of time. They did, and then they failed. Cyrus the Great, Persia, Genghis Khan. There's always been these dynasties in the past that have, expanded their territory and tried to have a hegemony across the globe. And in the end, they all imploded on themselves. And if you think about Rome, the thing that happened with Rome, I believe, was they ran out of money. The gold was coming out of the money. And so eventually Rome collapsed, right? So bringing it back to today, right? The only way that the United States is able to maintain its military power is through its treasury market. And so what it does is because it has a dollar system globally and it has the world's reserve currency and most transactions are done in dollars, countries have to buy government bonds, U.S. government bonds or treasury bonds in order to manage their reserves. They don't want to keep them in dollars because everybody knows that cash is trash, right? So the United States knows this. And so what they do is they issue the bonds, and they have the Federal Reserve to control interest rates, and they go ahead and borrow, and they can spend like crazy on the military. And they use the military to basically control and manage the world. So what does this really mean, right? Well, if you can't defeat the United States militarily, that means that you have to fight asymmetrically. And I think what we're going to see is the battle is going to happen in the U.S. Treasury market. And what will happen is when the United States starts struggling in its treasury auctions, that's when things are close to collapse, right? Because they borrow hundreds of billions of dollars to fund the military. It costs a lot of money to fund these bases. It costs a lot of money to fund these partners. Even right now, they're trying to send billions and billions of dollars over to Israel, right? Sending billions and billions of dollars to Ukraine. It's not money that we have. This is money that has to be borrowed. Money that has to be paid back, right? So the question is what happens to the economy when all this stuff starts to happen, right? Well, the real hard part is going to be having these conversations around entitlements, because we won't be able to afford them. We can't afford them now. We're funding them with more debt. Everything the government does is funded by debt. It's not like we have money in the coffers, right? It's like they sell treasuries to get cash. The cash goes right out the door, and then we got to go back and sell more treasuries, right? And so the military spending is about to go insane. All this money that they want to borrow, that they say they want to give to Israel, that money's going to come right back to the United States. It's going to come back to the military-industrial complex. And if you listen to the politicians, they're really for this because they know that the economy is on its last leg. And the only way to fudge the numbers with GDP is through military spending. And so it's kind of like this smoke and mirrors thing that they're doing. But the question is how long are they going to be able to keep it together? And so if that conflict in the Middle East escalates and gets out of control and the supply chain for oil gets squeezed, then it's going to get real hard. You're talking $8, $10 a gallon gasoline. And if that happens, what do you think people are going to do, right? They're not going to want a gas-powered car anymore because they're not going to want to be in front of the steamroller trying to pick up nickels. So, I mean, I did that. I used to drive a car that got 5-10 miles to the gallon. It was high horsepower, really enjoyed it, but I hate putting $100 in the tank every 3 days to keep it going. Now I charge at home. I don't have nowhere near that expense, and I don't have to pay the maintenance, and the car is even more fun to drive. So bringing this all back around to Tesla, because I know I went all over the place. Right now is a huge buy opportunity for this stock, the way I see it. The stock has been beaten down, beaten down, beaten down. They use the media to drive it down. And I almost think it's intentional, right? Because these hedge funds, media companies, Bloomberg, they don't work in a vacuum, right? They know that Tesla is getting ready to take off. It's the same thing with Bitcoin. Bitcoin was getting beaten down, beaten down, beaten down. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the big money comes in talking about ETF, right? And so it's like we never necessarily hold them accountable because they control the government. And so they're able to get in a position and then they flip the switch, right? And then they reap all the profits. So you have to change the way that you think. And when you see things like this happening and you look at a company and you see that the company is firing on all cylinders and you look at what's going on in the world and you think, wow, you know what? It is really strange that, you know, the stock price is down, but yet the company is making billions of dollars and has billions of dollars in cash. You know, maybe I need to think a little bit differently. So mark my word for it. Mark this day. Look at the stock price. Look at what happened today. And then come talk to me in January or February and let's see where the price of the stock is at after all this stuff hits. Because the Cybertruck event is at the end of this month. And I think it's going to be different from any event we've seen in a very long time. Shoot, they might even surprise us and take a Tommy gun and shoot the car up to show you that bullets don't go through the door. We already got a sample of that. We saw what Joe Rogan did trying to shoot a high-powered compound bow through the door and the arrow just shattered, right? The truck is really, really tough. You know, the Plaid model is going to be under 3 seconds, 0 to 60. The truck is super aerodynamic, so the range is going to be amazing. And they really built this thing to be like a tank. It will be different from anything that we've ever seen before. A complete reimagination of what the pickup truck should be, right? And in the beginning, it will be a love-hate relationship where either you love it or you hate it. But I tell you one thing, they got 2 million reservations for it. And I guarantee you, regardless of the price, there's going to be a lot of people initially that want this truck. And the more that you see it on the road, everybody's going to want one. And it's going to make people look at the brand. And when they go to the website, they're going to see the cost in comparison to a Honda Civic. And they're going to scratch their head and ask the question, do I want to continue paying this crazy ass money for gas? You know, paying all this maintenance for a gas powered car? Or do I want to put some money in my pocket because everything's expensive right now? I think you can answer that question for yourself. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's always a pleasure to be able to talk to the world, even though you guys can't talk back to me through the camera. But I know I've been gone for a while, but I'm not gone forever. I'll be back. I'll be posting more content. And with that being said, I hope you guys are doing well out there, and I'll catch you on the next video.